Okay, so we're going to get started with exercise 208 today. And essentially, over the next this week, we're going to start to give you more freedom in what you're modeling, and it's less scripted on my end. And this is intentional as we go forward. Obviously, at some point, you have to transition from me giving you, hey, we're building this bridge, or we're building this clamp, and here's the steps, to I'm envisioning I want to build this. How do I go about doing it? And so today, we're going to make the first step in that transition. In doing that, we're going to work from, hopefully, an existing set of documents, like some AutoCAD files or something, and we'll work with those to build a window or a door or something like that. You know, relatively simple building shape. Next class, we're going to get into kind of the organic shapes, the pillows, the cushions, the curtains, and those kinds of things, and how do you model those. So I'll walk you through that next class. But for today, we're gonna start working with some kind of building component. I think that might be the best way of describing it. So a door or a window or something along those lines. I want you to stay away from like furniture. So this isn't, go work on your chair day. This is actually, I want you to build something that exists, that somebody else has made, or that is commercially available. I don't want vases or anything like that either. Faucets are too hard. Stay away from faucets. Toilets are too hard. That kind of stuff. We're not getting into that. The reason that I pick doors and windows is, guess what? They're like rectangles. So they're fairly easy to get your head around, and you can think through, okay, I can do this. And that's why we're starting with that. As a base, you can go to any of the major manufacturers' websites. Andersen is one. Milgard is another. Pella is another. You could do a Google search for window and door companies. It doesn't really matter. But what we're looking for in all of these is, and this is something that you should be aware of, is you first go to the website, and it's geared toward the consumer, right? People that are going to buy the window. But on every one of these websites, there's some way of connecting with the pro section, right? Well, guess what? You're studying architecture, therefore you're in the pro category. And so on this one, here we go, there it is, pros. Right? On the Pella website here, for professionals. So it's there somewhere. If you're not on one of these three sites, you could pick any one site. It really makes no difference which site you're doing. And generally, once you're in the pro section, you can look under architect, but there's also probably a resources, architectural tools, CAD, something along those lines. And so you'll click on something related to that. If I'm on the Milgard site here, let's see here. Under product and specifications, there's CAD files and 3D models. Here under Pella, let's see, we're in professionals. Sure, let's get over to the architect side of things. Well, and somewhere in here we probably can find, I think in this one you have to actually start browsing for it, and then it'll be available once you find it. Anyway, I'm going to go back to the Andersen ones for right now. And if I look at the Andersen set here, I can see the variety of window types. There's an E series, there's an A series. For what we're doing today, it doesn't matter which one you pick, right? It's irrelevant. If you have a specific one, if you're doing a remodel or you're excited about a particular window or you like a company, you pick one of those. Different websites it's easier to find some things on certain websites. What we're looking for today is not a Revit model and it is not a SketchUp model. And so these companies have a tendency to provide Revit, SketchUp, and/or AutoCAD. AutoCAD's probably the most common. If almost any company should provide the AutoCAD drawing, or certainly the PDF version. Most all of them are going to provide the AutoCAD, and then we're kind of in the realm where Revit is probably the next most common, and then SketchUp, depending. And it really doesn't matter which particular one you pick, like I said. So let's say I'm trying to decide what. All right, well, we're going to go with one of the casement windows, I think. And you notice that here, if I'm looking at it, or maybe a single, well, let's do a casement. It'll be a little simpler. As I come across here, I have the 3D Revit file. Then I have 2D elevation file, 2D detail file, and some specs. Okay, I don't care about the specs and I don't care about the Revit file, but I do care about the 2D elevation file, which is available as a DWG, which is an AutoCAD file. I want that one, so I'll click on it and it should download. There it is. And the detail file may or may not be relevant for what we're trying to do, so I'll download it anyway and have a look. Okay, so let's first, I'm going to just click on the DWG file here and go ahead and open it up because I'm curious what it looks like. If you've never opened AutoCAD, it's not a big deal. We're just clicking on it to open it to see what the file looks like and make sure it's the right one. Yeah, okay. So the rest of this stuff, that's all fine. And none of it really matters. We're not doing anything in here. But it looks like they have some different sizes that are available. And if we zoom in, we can see the various, looks like it's mostly the style of grids on these. So that's fine. The AutoCAD file looks fine. I'm not going to bother saving it in AutoCAD. And we're going to go ahead and open it up in Rhino. So let me go take Rhino. While I'm waiting for Rhino to open, I'm going to extract this zip file that was the details. I'm going to choose a new large object in inches. So that I have a nice blank slate here. And I want to bring in that AutoCAD file. And so part of my reason for doing this is there'll be times where you want to bring in an AutoCAD file. So I might as well teach you how to bring in an AutoCAD file. And so when I do that, I'm going to go to File and then Import. Notice it's not Insert, it's actually Import. I'm bringing the whole file in. And I'll go find under Downloads, wherever I stored that here. There it is. I'll go ahead and open that. It's going to ask me some things. Number one, I already picked that inches was my default, so that's going to match up with what I'm bringing in, so that's good. The rest of these options are just fine. I'll go ahead and say OK. And we'll let all of those come in. And so if I were to look at this in the top view, there are all those windows in the various sizes that were available. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to model one of these windows. And which one of the windows is entirely up to you. That one has kind of nice proportions. I think I'll do that one. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to move it out of all the rest of this stuff. Then I'll select all the rest of that stuff and press the delete key to get rid of it. Maybe. Still thinking. All right. Then I'll move that little tiny object there down to 0.00. Zoom selected, and there I am. I have my little window set up. Okay? This is what I'm ultimately going to model today. I'm going to make this a 3D object of some kind. Obviously, there was tons and tons and tons of them to pick from, and I could have picked any one of them. It's a little bit arbitrary, but this is the one that I'm going to work from. Now, the other files that were available, I said I was going to extract them. Let me finish extracting them. And let me have a quick look at what they look like, because they may or may not be relevant for what I'm trying to do. My guess is it's way too much detail for what I really need. So in this case, we've got some sections of what the makeup of these windows are, where the screen goes, etc. This is probably way too much detail for anything I'm going to model. We'll use basic shapes, not this kind of complexity. But I want to point this out because this obviously tells you a lot about how the various windows work. Does that make sense? And how the pieces come together. So it's too much information. I'm not going to worry about it. Like there's the crank, for example. I'm not going to worry about it. So we'll go ahead and just close up AutoCAD, and I'm going to go back to my Rhino file, and I'm going to work with just this one. So before I get too far into this, I want to do some cleanup work. If I look at my layers, notice that AutoCAD brought in a bunch of layers for me. And so that's fine for right now. but it also brought in a bunch of blocks. So let me go up to Edit, Blocks, Block Manager, and you'll see that, oh, there's a bunch of stuff that wasn't part of what I was working on. So all of this stuff essentially can go away. So I'll select all of it, and I'll press Delete. And it can't delete nested block definitions. Great. Let's try that one more time. Let's press Delete. No. So the other thing about this is that there's a bunch of block, this is the way AutoCAD works. There's a bunch of block definitions that aren't even shown. We see down here, model has 367 hidden and no reference block definitions. Thanks, AutoCAD. Appreciate that. So let's check the box to show that and hope that Rhino doesn't crash. There we go. And I'm going to take some chunks here and just delete them. If you do all of them at once, you know it's a little risky. So do small groups. There we go. Got rid of all of them finally. That's good. So let me go ahead and close those. That cleaned things up a little bit. And I'll get to the AutoCAD stuff over here in a bit. Let's just create a master layer called AutoCAD. And let's stick all of these AutoCAD layers onto that AutoCAD master layer. And that'll let me turn them all off and turn them all on later on. Okay, so it's always a good idea to try to get yourself cleaned up a little bit so that before we get really into modeling it. So now I have to start thinking about, well, how exactly am I going to model this, and what's it going to look like? Well, first off, I have to start creating surfaces, because right now, this is just a series of lines. Let me switch over into the top view. Let me zoom selected here, Z followed by S. So this is just a series of lines. So I have to start, number one, dividing it up and starting to see how I could maybe extrude these. And I think extrude is probably the easiest strategy for kind of creating the initial depth. These symbols here represent that the window's open. I don't need those symbols, so I'll go ahead and delete those. They can go away. And now I'm going to start actually building this up. So first thing that I'll do is I'll create just a basic surface, rectangular corner to corner. And once I've created that plane there, I can then use a command called split to use the curves to divide up that plane into other objects. The other option, of course, would be to actually draw little bits along the way. But to me, that's too much work. So I'd rather do a split. So I'll type split. It's also available under the transform menu, I think. Maybe it's under edit. Split. Edit split. There we go. You can tell I always type split. But OK, select objects to split. That's the surface. I'll hit enter. Select cutting objects. And instead of selecting them all, I'm going to be careful when I do this. I want that, and that, that, and that. And I'm not going to worry about the individual panes just yet. Maybe I'll get to those. I'll go ahead and hit enter. And now if I were to look at this, let me turn off the AutoCAD for a second. I have surfaces that represent all of the major pieces of my window. So now I can start actually manipulating those and extruding those. So let me take the outermost piece here, and I'm going to extrude that. It's extrude SRF for surface. And we'll extrude that, I don't know, let's go up maybe 2 inches. And this is where those drawings obviously would help, because you could reference your drawings. Let me take this one, and I'll extrude this one maybe 1.5 inches. And I'll extrude this one maybe 1.5 inches as well. So I've now created a little bit of a frame there for the window. And I have a frame that goes all the way around the outside. Let me adjust the piece of the glass and pull that up, because right now it's still down at the bottom. So let me move. I want it to be vertical. And so we'll go from maybe there to halfway. So now I have those pieces like that. Let's make sure that I don't have any duplicate surfaces. Good, I don't. It's good. And so now we need to start to think through, what makes this window special, what makes it look good. One thing might be those divisions, the little mullions. I can add those in just a second, but I probably need some thickness to the glass because it's only one page. So I'm going to do an offset of this surface. So I'll say offset SRF for surface. And as I go over here, I'm going to do both sides because I want it going both directions. And I know I want the thickness of the glass to be a 1/2 inch total, so the distance here would be 1/4 of an inch. So I'll do 0.25 inches. And I'll go ahead and hit enter. And that should, OK, one more enter. There we go. And it should create the glass for me. I don't know for sure that I got rid of all of my original surface. So let me go in there and just make sure. Yes, I got rid of the original surface. So that was good. Let me repeat the process over here. Same thing. I'll move it up first. So move vertical. So that's in the center. Then I'm going to offset surface. 1/4 of an inch. Solid yes. Delete input yes. So there, I forgot to check that, but it was already checked as yes. That means it gets rid of the original surface. And I do want it to be both sides yes. Enter. And that gives me that pane of glass as well. Let me switch back to shaded mode here for just a second. OK. So now I have those created. But maybe I want to put those mullions back in. Maybe I want a little bit more detail. So let me turn back on my AutoCAD file for just a second. And I'm looking at this from the underside. And I'm going to take these lines. And I'm going to move them. Move. I know that that corner is in the same plane, so we'll move it up to right there. Oops, sorry. Right there, so that they're in plane with that topmost surface there. So I already have pieces for the glass, but I need pieces for the mullions itself. So I'm going to create a new surface. It'll be rectangular corner to corner so that I can do another split. I could split the glass itself, but I'd rather keep the glass constant. So let me go ahead and do that. There's my surface. I want to split that with these. But you know what? Before I do that, see how these intersect right there? I'm going to go ahead and trim those. So I'll do trim. And I know that the grills are on the green layer because they're green. So I'll select objects that are on that layer to select only those objects. And then we'll go ahead and get rid of those pieces of the curve. All right, I got all of those. That's perfect. So let me go ahead and split. I should have joined them. It would have made selecting them easier. I'm going to split the surface with, I'll go ahead and select it from here as well there. These curves don't matter because they're on the other side, so I'll hold down Control and deselect those. And we'll go ahead and split that surface, which should give me this surface and a bunch of individual panes of glass. Let's get rid of those individual panes of glass. Because I already have the piece of glass there. And now let's take this piece that is the grills and let's extrude surface. And I want half of that reveal. So it's at 0.25 there, so that it's extending out from my glass a little bit. You guys see how that works? So this is easy, obviously, because I could take this and I could copy it over to the other side. I could also copy it down to below. So I'll do that in just a second. But maybe I want a little bit more detail. Maybe I want to chamfer these edges so they have a little bevel on them. And so this is what happens here as you start to build these things up, is you can put in more and more levels of detail. So initially, okay, this looks like a reasonable window. But I can go in and I can add more to it. I can make it more complicated as I go forward. So we're going to add a little bit more detail. I'm going to do a chamfer surface. My distance is here. Let's do 1/8 of an inch. So 1/8 inches. There we go. And let's go ahead and chamfer this one to that one. Oh, how nice. It failed to create it, right? Thanks so much. All right, in that case, I might have to split this back. Did all that work to not do this, but split with this. Chamfer surface, there, there, there we go. Now it'll do it for me. There, there. And then obviously I can work my way through everywhere. This obviously would take a lot more time to kind of work through all the details on something like that. So I'm going to go back and not do it for right now and be back in this place. Let me go ahead and copy this in its other locations. So let me copy to right there. Let me take this one and this one, and I'm going to copy them once again, but this time it's going to be vertical. So I'll type V for vertical. And I'm also going to switch my view into ghosted so that as I go down I can see where the lower side of that glass is. It's right there. There. So now I have those both on the top and on the bottom. So now that I have those set up, I'm going to rotate this so it's up in the third dimension. So let me take this whole piece, we'll rotate 3D. There to there. And maybe I want to add a little bit of trim that goes around the outside of the window, for example, or a window sill or something like that. So I'll do that using just the regular box corner to corner. And let me start maybe right here. And we'll go to this end. I'm going to do this at an arbitrary width here. I could specify, I could say at 4 feet, comma, whatever. I'm just going to do it at an arbitrary width. And I'm going to go down by the dimension that I want. So in this case, let me go 1.5 inches. Oops. Negative 1.5 inches. There we go. But I want this to not stick out at an arbitrary distance. So in this context, the easiest way of fixing that is to go to Transform, and then I'm going to scale in one direction. So scale 1D is my command. And I'll say that I want this distance from there to there to actually be, let's say, 2 inches. Maybe something like that. So I'm using the scale to my advantage. Let's go. Yeah, I'll do it again. Let me do it up at the top. I'll create the header up at the top. So once again, I'll start from one corner. We'll go out here. We'll make it almost exaggerated wide, something like that. And we know the height in this case, let's do it at 5.5 inches. But I need to make that only the thickness of a 2x4 or a 2x material. So I'm going to take this and scale this object so that this distance from here to here is only 1.5 inches. So let me scale 1D. It's also available up under Transform and then Scale 1D. And I'm going to scale 1D. This to there is now only going to be 1.5 inches, like that. So I've now created a little head above my window. Does that make sense? So I'm putting the trim around it. So maybe I'll start along the side here next, and I'll say, okay, we'll go starting right there. This one I'm going to actually type it in. We'll say at negative, or no, it's positive 5.5 inches, comma, negative 1.5 inches. There we go. And I'll drop this down till it meets the bottom of my sill like that. But maybe I need to adjust the height. or the width of the header so that it goes over the top. So I'll do scale 1D. You can see today I'm emphasizing scale 1D as a strategy as you move forward. So I'll go from there to there, but I want it to go out to there. And you know what? I want the sill to come out. So we'll go from here to there. Let's take the sill. Like that. All right, pretty good. Let me take this piece. I'll copy it such that it goes right there. Then I'll need to do a scale 1D again. Out to there. Now I have that going all the way around. I need to do the sill at the bottom. Scale 1D. Like that. Slight little reveal in the sill. Let's go one little piece of trim underneath this. So I'll just make it as big as this is, but we'll go down negative 5.5 inches there. Scale 1D. Uh-oh. And we'll take that at 1.5 inches like that. So essentially what I did is I just built out the trim that goes around the window. And all of these things, I'm typing in numbers. Oh, 5.5 inches or whatever. Again, it's about the process. You guys are making something today that theoretically is real. That's the part that matters. If your dimensions are a little off, no big deal. If you did full 2x6, no big deal. This is not a construction and materials class. So let me go ahead, and I want to think carefully. Let's imagine this coming in as a block. You guys all did blocks last class. Where would I want control of this object? Well, chances are I'd have a hole in my window, and I'd want to stick this window in so that it matched the outside face. So that point right there is probably a really good place. So let me take the whole object. Let me move it so that this point right there is at 0, 0, 0. I added that third 0 to make sure it's right at the origin in that location. And that'll come in nicely as a block for me. So now let's have a little bit more control over what the objects are and what the materials look like. We talked about materials last class a lot. We talked about texture mapping. This is important today. We have to make sure that we deal with texture mapping and that as well. OK, so first off, let's think about the various components that make up this window. First off, I have all the trim. So that's easy. Let's select the trim. I'm just holding down Shift as I do this. Here we go. And let's put it, I don't know, let's change it to be on layer 2. Let me change object layer, and let's call this trim. And if you want to confirm, sometimes it's nice to just give colors to things so you can really easily see that everything on this layer is orange. So I have trim. I need a layer for the glass. But before I do the windows, it's possible that I might want to move or rotate one of these windows so that it would be open, for example. So I'm going to do each of the windows separately from each other. So let me do, let's do a window left and a window right. If I can type, which I can't. OK, and then I'll do it as if I were standing. Let's do it outside. OK, so let me take the left window. I'll take all the stuff that belongs to the left window here. There we go. And I'll assign it to the window left. Change object layer. But actually, you know what? Let's put finer control on that. Let's do a sublayer for window left. Let's do WL glass. Do another sublayer for WL frame. So now I can take the glass and put it on the WL glass layer. And I can take all of the frame and I can put it on the WL frame. Change object layer. Okay, so all of that, and I can confirm that the whole window is there by turning it on and turning it off. Same thing on this side. So let's do a WR glass. Now the layer WR frame. Glass goes on the glass layer. Frame goes on the frame layer. Confirm. Yep, that's good. Looks like, so let me turn off. This needs to go on the glass layer. I had a leftover surface. Maybe not. Okay, so I have those left and right. Let's collapse those down a little bit. I have the regular window frame, so let's create a new regular layer. This is window frame. That would be that part of the window. Change object layer. And let's create a master layer for all of this. This is now I didn't actually measure what the height was here, so let me double check what the height is. And to do that, I'm just going to type a command called distance. It's also under analyze distance. Length, you might think, oh, well, I'll pick length. Length is the length of an object, so you have to have a line to say what is the length. Distance just says, tell me what the distance is from this point to that point. Okay, so this is a 4040 window. So I'll say Anderson 40x40, and that's the master layer for the whole thing. And then underneath it, I will stick the trim, the window left, the window right, and the window frame. There we go. So all of that's underneath. That all feels pretty good. Let's get rid of everything else. So I'll get rid of layer 7. I'll get rid of all the AutoCAD layers and all their sub-layers. And now I have just the Anderson, the right window, and the left window. Make sense? OK, so now I need to start actually thinking through materials. What are these windows going to look like? So let me go to File, or excuse me, let me open my V-Ray material library. And let me load in, I don't know, we'll say these windows are white, so maybe I'll load in, resources, V-Ray materials. Maybe I'll load in white plastic. Oh, I don't have white plastic, so let me load the black plastic first. And I'll go in. This is part of why I teach you about the materials, because, okay, well, the plastic's the same. The only thing that's different is that its color should be white. So I'll change it to white. And let's rename it to be plastic white. Now I could pick anything else. I could have a wood window. I mean, it's entirely up to you. So then I need to apply this to some layers. So let me apply material to layer, and it's going to go on the frame layer. Apply material to layer. It's going to go on that frame layer. Apply material to layer, and it's going to go onto the window frame itself. Okay. And then maybe I want the trim to be something different. So I'll go to Scene Materials. I'll go to Load Material. And let me pick some wood. And I'm going to use the fir because it has a distinct grain pattern for the texture mapping, and I want to review texture mapping. So we went ahead and loaded the fir. I'm going to apply that to layer, and this time it's going to go to the trim. And I'll say OK. I also need glass. So in this case, we've done glass that doesn't really look like glass. Because this is going to be reused in a scene long term with environments and all that kind of stuff, we'll go ahead and use regular glass. So I'll go to Load Material, I'll go back in here, and I'll go to Glass, and I'm going to pick the basic glass. And so I have basic glass. I'm going to right-click on glass, apply material to layer, and we'll put it on each of the glass layers. Perfect. So now I have the materials assigned, and I can also take a look at what they look like by switching my view to be in rendered mode. So there it is. Now, the texture mapping doesn't work just yet. So let's look at this top piece first, and I'm going to go through and do the texture mapping on that piece. So I'll come over to my properties. I'll go to texture mapping. This is most like a box, so we'll apply a box mapping to it. And I want it to be a bounding box, world, and I want it to be capped yes. And we'll have a look at it. Okay, the scale probably could get a little bit tighter. So let's try a 2 on the repeat. Yeah, that looks pretty good. I do probably want the x equals y equals z, though, so that they're consistent. That needs to get a little bit. Let's go up to maybe 4. There we go. So that looks like a piece of wood. Now, this piece is running in the opposite direction. So I can do one of two things. I can copy this and then rotate the mapping, which I'll show you how to do, or I could just create another box map and apply it. To me, the easiest thing to do would be to select your object and say match mapping to the top. Okay, so that's nice, except it's going in the wrong direction right now. So what I'll do is I'll show the mapping using the widget. There's my mapping. And I will go, let me turn on my gumball, and I'm going to rotate by 90 degrees. So we'll go over here by 90 degrees, and now it's the same mapping, but it's going vertically, which looks like the board should look. So then I'll go ahead and I'll copy the mapping that I created there onto that board. So now I have mapping there. I have mapping at the top. I need to do a little bit more for the bottom here. So that one's pretty easy. We'll take this, match mapping to the top. Take this, match mapping to the top. Like that. So it takes some time to do this correctly, but once I do it correctly, then the grain looks like they're actually pieces of wood. And this is a lot of doing renderings and a lot of having it look good is understanding how a building's really made and mimicking that as part of the process. So now I have this. We can actually hide the mapping widget because I don't need that anymore. Let's hide the mapping widget. Turn off the gumball. There we go. So I have my object. I'm happy with how it turned out. It looks like a window. It's possible that maybe I want to have one of the windows open a little bit. The reason that I separated the window into the left and the right is so that I could select everything that makes up the right, for example. Switch to shaded mode for just a second. Select sublayer objects. There it is. And then I could rotate 3D. And we'll go right along this edge here. And maybe I wanted it open 30 degrees. Oops, that was the wrong direction. There we go, -30, and it's open. So I could do something like that. And so the reason I set up the layers is because I was anticipating wanting to do that. So I set them up in that fashion. So now that I have this whole thing put together, it's time to actually output it for the course website. So first off, I need like a reasonably good rendering of this particular piece so that I can see it. It's hard because you have no, long day. You have no context for this to be in. So I think the easiest strategy would be to go in my V-Ray options, go to my output, or excuse me, go to my environment, change the background to white. or even light gray might work nicely. And with that set, I'll go ahead and close that, and I'll do a quick rendering of what this looks like. Now herein lies the problem, right? Everything's white, so I don't really get good rendering results. I think maybe what the best strategy would be, I'll tell you what, I will create a file and I'll post it online that has some background sun and stuff. And if I put that in, you can drop this in as a block and do a rendering, and then you'll have one that shows the glass and stuff. It'll be a little nicer, a little cleaner. So I'll create that for you and put it online. I'll put it under today's exercise. So we'll go to exercise 208. Yep, I don't have it, but I'll do one for you so you can do the rendering, and it has background context. You'll be able to see it a little bit better. When you go to post this, we're going to have you use the JPEG image. So obviously we'll save this as the JPEG image, and you'll post the JPEG image as the featured image as you typically do. You will also, however, save your Rhino file. So I'll go to File, Save As. This is the 3DM file. I'm going to save this into today's folder, and I'm going to post that as well, because theoretically somebody might want to use it. If I do a good enough job, they might want to borrow it. So I'll put it under, sorry, wrong. Here. Let me create a new folder real quick. This is fall of 2017. And this is a Anderson 4040 casement window. OK, so I have 4040. I'm going to save it as a Rhino 3D file. I'll save that. I'm going to upload that file. Furthermore, though, somebody might need to use the materials, and they might not have your materials. Notice, for example, I changed the material to white plastic. They might not have my white plastic. So I'm going to go into my materials library, and any material that I've used, I'm going to right-click on that material, and I'm going to select Pack Material. What packing a material does is it collects all of the files that make up the material. There's more than just the settings. There's reference files, there's image files, and that sort of thing. It's going to collect all of those together, put it in a zip file. So I'll pack all of that, and I'll put it in the same place. We'll save. I'll pack my white plastic. Save. I'll pack my basic glass. Perfect. So now I have the materials that go with it. So now when it's time to actually do the post, I'm going to go to Create a New Post. Oh, I should save the rendering too. Ugly as it is. All right, I'll save that as well. All right, I'll click Save there. So I have this file, I have the 3D Studio file, and I have the materials. And I'll go to the course website. I'll make my post. This is an Anderson 4040 casement window. And I could say download, for example. And let me upload some stuff. Let me add media. And I will go into today's folder. And I'll start with my 3D Studio, or my Rhino 3D model. We'll open that. I'll insert into the post. And it gives me that link. Then I'll upload each of the materials. Upload files. Basic glass. Insert into post. All right, so now I have the materials and I have the file itself. I do need the featured image, so I'll come down to my featured image and I'll upload that. And I'll set that as the featured image. So I have that. There's one more step to this, actually two more. Under categories, of course, I have to say that this is exercise 208, which it is. But also down here, you'll see something called Rhino blocks. I want to make sure that in Rhino blocks here, I say that this is a window, and there might be other, it's under fenestration. It's a window, it's a casement. And I'll go ahead and scroll back up and publish. Now, all of these items are available on the course website for you to browse and use. So if you go into resources and you go to Rhino blocks library, these are all things that people have made before. Furnishings, building components, electrical components. The electrical are lights, variety of other plumbing fixtures, etc. There's even some landscape stuff. So anyway, you get the idea. They're separated out. You're more than welcome to browse and use any of these. I will create that file for you. But before I let you go, I do want to also point out that some websites do provide 3D model stuff that you can use. So for example, the Kohler website, obviously they make bathroom products and kitchen products, so things like toilets. It would be very hard for you to model a toilet. At least it would be very hard even for me to model a toilet. So the good news is on things like toilets, you can go to a particular website, in this case Kohler, and we could go, let me see a two-piece toilet. Right? And you could say, oh, you know, I really like this one. Maybe I want an old style toilet. I'll click on it. And if I scroll down here, 3D CAD files. Okay? The OBJ is a kind of a universal object file. I'm going to go ahead and click on that and download it. I'm going to bring it in here because I already have this open. But I could then go to File and then Import. And I probably need to say all compatible file types, and I should be able to see that OBJ file. Where did it go? Maybe it didn't finish yet. Show in a folder. Oh, there it is. Perfect. Thank you. And I'll go ahead and say open. I'll just leave the default settings set. And lo and behold, there's a really complicated toilet. I need to rotate it 3D, obviously. This is a spot where the gumball might be good. We'll drop that like that. Let me move it over a little bit. So if we look at that, for example, that would be very difficult to model, correct? But Kohler made it for us. So as you go forward, recognize that a lot of things that manufacturers make, you can actually download these things and drop them in. This is pretty easy. You apply a white porcelain material and suddenly you have a toilet. And you can drop it in. And it looks really good to do these kinds of things. It's easy. And so I like to kind of introduce you to that as a concept. It's nice because they put the lid on this one. Sometimes they're open and they don't look so good. So, but that's, you know, that's something that you can do. What we're making here is obviously a little bit more simple than something like this. You could, if given enough time, actually make this. And we'll talk about organic shapes next class and how they go together. Okay? So today I want you to make a window, a door, a sliding window, whatever it is that sounds good to you. That's what I want you to work on. Part of the challenge today is figuring out yourself how to model it. Right? That's the big leap that we're making today. Is you now have some skills. How do you make it work? How do you make it into a window that looks good? Or how do you make it into a door that looks good? Okay? Make sense? Any questions? No? All right. I'll turn you loose. And I will post, give me 5-10 minutes and I'll make that file so you can download it, drop yours in as a block, and get a nice rendering out of it. Okay?